Everyone cares about safety at Transrail, from the board and executive team through to those who work day by day on the trains, the trucks and the ferries. We operate a national freight handling service, but safety and quality are the two things that matter most. We try to provide a safe working environment for our customers, our employees and the public. A key to running a successful transport business is putting extra effort into preventing accidents. Safe operations are no accident. They are the result of deliberate decisions you make as you carry out your tasks. This includes everything from wearing the appropriate clothing and following the safety codes, to staying alert to possible accidents and taking action to make sure that they don't happen. And the extra effort you put into stowing freight safely and securely protects you and everyone else down the line.
Freight handling is the core of our business, and as freight moves throughout the country, there are numerous potential hazards. Some not so obvious need to be considered. From the busy yard with its tight clearances to the passengers waiting at the station. Consequences of insecure loads and equipment are real. People get hurt and it costs everyone. This video is about being Worksafe. It consists of a number of modules, each covering the correct procedures for loading and unloading freight on specific wagons. These are listed on the back of the video cover with a time reference for easy access. Remember, if you load the freight, it's your responsibility to ensure it's loaded correctly. Send the freight as you want it received. If you have any concerns, contact Transrail Service Centre on 0800 351 351. We're open 24 hours for advice and to answer any freight queries you may have. Module 1 shows us how to load and unload flat deck wagons using chains, strops and stanchions to secure our freight. These wagons are mainly used for moving steel, timber, machinery and many odd-shaped loads. Remember, never load freight onto a bad order wagon. And don't forget to report any damaged wagons. Before you start loading, have a look at Section 5 of the Freight Handling Code. It'll give you ideas about where to place your freight, how to safely load it onto the deck, and any route restrictions. If you need help, call us at the Transrail Service Centre on 0800 351 351. First, think about what you need to hold your load firmly. Chains, strops, or dunnage materials. And check their condition before you use them. Next, clear the deck of any rubbish and don't just put it down, put it away. As you're loading, check the freight on both sides of the wagon and rearrange if the load appears to be unsafe. When you've finished loading, Tie the loads down firmly with chains or strops depending on what it is. Put the stanchions back in the pockets. And if you're using a tarpaulin, check it's secure without any loose ropes or corners. And make sure you don't cover up the shunter's handholds. Make sure that any spare chains are safely tied across the deck and the extra chain is stored in the bin provided. When you're loading steel, use dunnage to separate the steel from steel to prevent movement. If you're using a concertina wagon, don't leave the chains loose on the deck, as they can easily slide and jam the curtain runners, or fall through and, dragging along the ground, cause serious injury or damage. The curtain must be closed and securely latched, as a loose curtain can easily be damaged and your load can get wet. When you've finished your loading, complete the load planning sheet and hand it to your supervisor for a site inspection. In signing off load plans, your supervisor will prove doors, chains, strops, and necessary paperwork are all in order. When all wagons have been checked, complete the Ready to Travel card and attach it to the front wagon of the rake. When unloading freight, always use the correct equipment and remember to remove any loose packaging or dunnage. If you have any dunnage, ensure it's securely tied down or placed in the dunnage pile at the yard. Once you've finished, lace the chains across the wagon and stow the extra in the bins provided. Roll the strops and put them away, and put the stanchions firmly back in the pockets. All tarpaulins should be folded and stored at the branch, or collection should be arranged. Remember to close the curtains on the concertina wagons and latch firmly. If you see any damage to the wagon, report it to the service centre. Don't forget to fill out a Ready to Travel card and attach it to the front wagon of the rake. You need to fill out one of these cards whether the wagon is loaded or empty. Plan your load carefully. Inspect the load and rearrange it if needed. Check chains, strops, dunnage, stanchions, tarpaulins and latches. When required, make sure a loading unenclosed freight checklist is placed in the wagon clip. Complete the Ready to Travel card and place on the front wagon of the rake. For advice or to report damage, call the Tranz Service Centre on 0800 351 351.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.
Transrail moves thousands of containers every week. Module 2 shows us how to load them onto wagons and unload them. Containers come in a variety of sizes with either side or end openings. There are several types, such as the general box, the high cube, the refrigeration unit or the flat rack. All containers are secured onto flat deck wagons by twist locks. Some have automatic twist locks, which are self-securing, like the IC wagon, which has been constructed to take a combination of containers. But be aware, on the IC, the 40-foot can only be loaded on the handbrake end, as marked, and the twist lock heads not in use will automatically retract. Before you start loading your containers, have a look at Section 12 of the Freight Handling Code. It'll explain about wagon load weights, axle load limitations, different types of containers, and any movement restrictions. If you need help, call us at the Transrail Service Centre on 0800 351 351. When you finish putting your freight into the container, make sure all the doors are closed, latches are firmly in place, top and bottom, and in some cases both sides, loaded or empty. Remember, a swinging door on moving trains is a danger to trackside equipment and to the general public. If you're loading the freight, it's your responsibility to make sure it's loaded correctly. Send the freight as you want it received. Section 12 of the Freight Handling Code shows where to place the container on the wagon. As you're putting the container onto the deck, check it is resting correctly on all the twist locks. Then make sure all 4 twist locks are secured. And if you have a problem, call 0800 351 351 for assistance. Keep a lookout for those wagons which have automatic twist locks. The twist lock heads always sit at an angle. Remember, it is important to check for route restrictions for both axle loads and heights. Not all tunnels allow for those containers that are 2.9 meters high. And don't wait until the AVI site picks up an overloaded wagon. Check the weight distribution on those wagons. When you've finished your loading, don't forget to fill out the appropriate paperwork for your container. Wagon declaration forms for stacked container bases and flat racks, or cribs of clip-on refrigeration units that prove correct load planning security, must be placed on the end of each wagon. Dangerous goods declarations must accompany all loads containing hazardous substances. Don't forget to also attach placards to the container if carrying hazardous goods. After the supervisor has proved the ready-to-travel arrangements, fill out the ready-to-travel card and attach it to the front wagon of the rake. Remember, release all 4 twist locks before you lift the container from the wagon. However, if you have a wagon with automatic twist locks, these will release when the fork hoist gives a strong pull upwards. Remember, if there is any damage to twist locks, containers or wagons, call the service centre. When your wagons are empty, don't forget to fill out the ready-to-travel card and attach it to the front wagon of the rake. You need to fill out one of these cards whether the wagons are loaded or empty. Check the twist locks are secure. Check doors and hatches are closed and latched. Ensure all documentation is complete. Complete the Ready to Travel card and place on the front wagon of the rake. For advice or to report damage, phone the Transrail Service Centre on 0800 351 351.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.
Module 3 shows us how to load and unload box wagons. These are used for carrying general freight, such as cartons and boxes, drums, rolls of paper, or carpets and plants. They have side-opening doors or curtains and are usually made of steel or fiberglass. Before you start, have a look in sections 20 and 21 of the Freight Handling Code. These will give you ideas about placement of pallets and the safe handling and security of general loose freight. First, check the condition of the box wagon. If it has a damaged curtain or doors, don't use it, as the load can get wet or fall out. Remember to contact the Transrail Service Centre on 0800 351 351 to report any damage. When you've finished loading, chock the freight with dunnage or with airbags. Or tie it down firmly with strops or ropes to prevent movement. Remember to have your supervisor confirm your loading is correct. Then close the doors or curtains and make sure they're securely latched. Attach a security seal. If you're carrying hazardous goods, don't forget the correct placards. Fill out any documentation for hazardous goods and place the appropriate documentation in the clip of the wagon. When all wagons and documentation have been checked, complete the Ready to Travel card and attach it to the front wagon of the rake. Remember, never shunt a wagon with a forklift unless you are using the buffer or push casting. If you're loading the freight, it's your responsibility to make sure it's loaded correctly. Send the freight as you want it received. When unloading, only ever operate the fiberglass doors by hand, never use a forklift. Release the catches, then pull the door open by hand. Keep the door between you and the freight. Use the T-bar, which fits easily onto the forklift to open steel doors. Once you've finished unloading the freight, clear the deck of dunnage and rubbish. And don't just put it down, put it away. Make sure all the doors and curtains are closed and firmly latched, as open ones can easily be damaged. Don't forget to fill out the Ready to Travel card and attach it to the front wagon of the rake when you've finished your unloading. Never use a forklift on a fiberglass door. Make sure all doors and curtains are securely latched. Check all freight is firmly secured. Place hazardous documentation on the wagons where required. Complete the Ready to Travel card and place on the front wagon of the rake. For advice or to report damage, phone the Transrail Service Centre on 0800 351 351.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.
Transrail has an average of 170 wagons with major damage out of service at any given time. This represents approximately 3% of our fleet. For us, this means there are fewer wagons available for our customers. We need to reduce this number. There are many causes of damage, and these include being unfamiliar with equipment, rushing to complete the job, or using incorrect equipment for the task. The cost of this damage is not only the price of repair materials and labour, but also the loss of revenue to our company. It can take several months to make repairs and get these wagons back into service. This covers transporting to the repair site, availability of workers and materials, and the time undergoing repair. Hillside spends 40% of its labour hours just repairing damage to wagons. This module details the main causes of damage to wagons and the costs associated in putting them back on track. Wagon damage happens everywhere, from freight terminals and shunting yards to customer sidings. The three main causes of damage to wagons are by forklifts, cornering, and improper use. The damage to the ZH wagon was caused by using incorrect equipment, a forklift to open the doors. The probable cause being loose dunnage or freight jamming the runners, preventing the doors being pushed by hand. All the panels by the handles have been damaged, and here the whole handle has been ripped off. To fix damage like this takes up to 7 days and would cost approximately $3,000. The doors need to be stripped back, the damage cut out, and then the area needs rebuilding. Every day these units are out of action, it causes the cost to escalate. This looks only minor, but water soaking into the door will damage the insulation. The time taken to fix this could be reduced by covering the initial damage with tape, therefore keeping the water out and preventing the hole becoming larger. It could also be eliminated by making sure the freight is loaded correctly and there's no loose dunnage or strops and chains left on the deck. Remember that the ZBV, ZG and ZH are more sophisticated units than the ZA or ZP and must be opened by hand, not by forklifts. In order to reduce damage on the ZA and ZP wagons, it's better to use the steel T-bar which attaches easily to the forklift. Remember, you would still need to release the door catches first. Cornering is usually where the end wagon of a rake has been left fouling the road and is then hit by another wagon being shunted. It can also happen when a wagon passes too close to a structure, and because the standard loading gauge is wider these days, contact is made. The number of longer and wider wagons in our fleet is becoming more common, and without care they're more likely to get damaged. This damage is a direct result from cornering at a freight yard. The damage to this one wagon alone can cost on average $5,500 to fix. To help eliminate this damage, it's important to use the push-pull method for shunting. And make sure we do not leave rakes fouling roads or points. The third most common cause of damage is improper use of the wagons. This is where freight may be loaded incorrectly and movement during travel causes damage, loading steel without dunnage, or modifying wagons to carry particular articles by welding objects to the decks. Then, when the wagon reaches its destination, the weld is cut off. By considering the following points, we can reduce the damage to wagons, therefore making sure they're out working for everyone. Always open fiberglass doors by hand. If the doors cannot be opened by hand, it's probable they've been dislodged off the runners. Check along the bottom of the door, and if the wheel is not located correctly, reposition it by lifting the door using 2 crowbars. Fit the wheel back into the slot, then open the door. Use the steel T-bar to open steel box wagon doors. Check those weights. Don't overload the decks. Make sure all doors and curtains are closed and latched securely whether wagons are loaded or empty. Make sure freight is secure and there are no loose chains, strops or ropes left lying around. Make sure all rubbish is cleared from the decks. Don't loose shunt. Use the push-pull method. If there is any damage, no matter how minor it appears, report it to the Transrail Service Centre on 0800 351 351 immediately. Never use a forklift on a fiberglass door. Make sure all doors and curtains are closed and latched securely. Check all freight is secured correctly. Make sure chains not in use are laced across the deck. Stow extra ropes, strops or chains in the correct place. Use push-pull method when shunting. Report all damage, even if it appears to be minor. For advice or to report damage, phone the Transrail Service Centre on 0800 351 351.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.
This video presentation has been developed to teach and reinforce the correct actions and behaviours necessary to maintain safety for Transrail employees and its equipment when working in yards and terminals. Always remember the guiding principle of rule number 1, the safety of the public and other employees. Safety and service quality are of the utmost importance to our company. Safe operations are no accident. They're the result of the deliberate, conscious and accurate responses you make when carrying out your duties. It's essential for your safety that the correct clothing and footwear is worn when performing duties in the yards. Your boots need to be firmly secured with laces or straps. They need raised heels, steel toe caps, and to provide suitable ankle support. Loose clothing can catch on brake equipment, hoses, taps, etc. Therefore, it's important your clothing is comfortable but not baggy or loose. Long hair and beards need to be tied back or tucked away. If you wear a coat with a hood, ensure that it's secured around the face but is not restricting your vision or hearing. As hand and wrist jewellery can easily catch on handholds or on levers, it's important that these items are not worn. It's essential that high visibility gear is worn at all manned terminals and freight sites, or as outlined in the worksite safety plan. If you're using portable radios that are equipped with extension speaker microphone units and flexible aerials, ensure these are carried in a pouch and worn on a proper belt. If wearing the high visibility vests, use the purpose-built pocket provided.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.
To ensure your safety, it's essential that you read and understand the workplace safety plan. Operations can provide natural barriers with a high density of vehicles and conflicting movements. These create an environment that requires individuals to take responsibility for their own safety. Most serious injuries occur when workers are struck by moving vehicles. It's important when walking over rail sets not to stop between them or to stand on the rails, point switches or frogs. These are also hazardous as you can slip on the smooth surfaces, especially during rainy or frosty conditions. When you're moving around the yard, it's important to consider the following. Always provide enough distance between yourself and the rear of the rake. This gives you sufficient time to move clear if there are sudden movements. This also applies when walking through gaps in the rakes. And never cross the rails in front of a moving vehicle which is closely approaching. Only cross between connected vehicles when they're stationary. Do not attempt to do so if they're moving. Observe the locations of the handholds and make sure they're clear of obstructions. And you must not stand on the air brake equipment. When stepping on a handbrake, make sure the lever is located in the crotch. And remember to pause before stepping down and out, checking the ground is clear and there are no other obstructions or movements on adjacent roads.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.
When completing shunting duties, it's essential you're familiar with the hand signals described in the rules. There are 3 ways of giving a stop signal. The first, with the arms raised above the head, palms facing the approaching movement, is an emergency stop. The second stop signal is given with both arms extended at shoulder height. Or alternatively, one arm extended at shoulder height is used when the other hand is controlling something else. Using this hand signal, rotating the arm from the shoulder, our shunter is signalling the locomotive engineer to come towards him. To provide definition for this hand signal, you'll notice as the movement gets closer to the points, the rotations come from the shoulder to the elbow to wrist, immediately before stopping. Once the locomotive has passed the shunter, the gestured hand signal indicates move away. As before, the rotations go from the shoulder to elbow, then to wrist, immediately before the stop signal is applied. When the hands are brought together in a clapping action, this indicates ease up, move towards me. When the arms are folded across the body, this indicates out short, move away from me, and be prepared to stop. Move towards me. Move towards me, but be prepared to stop. Stop. Move away from me. Move away from me and be prepared to stop. Stop.
Locomotive engineer, grid shunt, from shunt to grid shunt. Over.
Before using the portable radio, you need to establish direct voice contact with all others on the link.
How do you hear me? Over.
Perfectly clear. Over.
Stand by 5 minutes. Over.
Roger, locomotive engineer, grid shunt out.
When boarding a locomotive, it must be stationary. You must face the direction of travel, grasp the handrail with your inside hand, and step up and in with your inside leg. As the movement progresses, make sure you hold on firmly at all times. When you need to get off the locomotive, make sure it is stationary, stepping out and down with your outside leg, checking to see that your feet are going to go down onto stable ground. Getting on and off moving locomotives and vehicles is not permitted by staff certified in stationary shunting duties. If, however, you need to abandon a movement for your own safety, remember, when stepping out and down, to step forward. This action is only to be taken in an emergency. These are the approved riding positions when riding on moving locomotives and wagons. Always be prepared for surges in the rake. Please be aware that some classes of wagons are identified in the working timetable as no ride. Make yourself familiar with them. When operating the hand points, remember to operate them from the outside. The operation is from the ground, not when standing on a vehicle or locomotive. Make sure switches are fully closed. When passing through trailing points, make sure they're correctly set for the intended movement before setting back. Wagons must be secured to prevent movement when a shunt is complete. Apply the handbrake by using the correct hand positions. Face the handbrake and position your body on the outside of the vehicle. Always ensure the vehicles are clear from fouling adjacent roads. If you need to apply the handbrakes in an emergency, face the direction of travel, use the hand closest to the wagon, step up on the handbrake with the foot closest to the wagon, gripping the handhold firmly. When connecting and coupling vehicles, make sure they're stationary.
2 to go. Coming on and...
See the hook is in place, lift the bridle over it, place one foot between the rails and connect the air hoses. Then open the taps. When using alliance couplings, open the knuckle of the coupler head on the vehicle which is to remain stationary. Move the disconnecting lever and pull upwards, then fully open the knuckle of the coupler head. Stand clear of the vehicles as the coupler heads make firm contact. If connecting alliance couplers on a curve, open both knuckle heads. If using a strop, attach it to the buffers of the wagons. Remember, the use of strops is restricted to one bogie at a time. Stand well clear when beginning the movement. At level crossings where automatic alarms are not provided, the speed of shunting movements approaching and onto the level crossing must be reduced to less than walking pace, being prepared to stop, as there is a risk of collision with road vehicles. Where there is an unrestricted view, and it can be clearly seen there is no road traffic at or approaching the crossing concerned, the movement can proceed with the shunter in charge calling it on to the crossing. If road traffic is approaching the level crossing, then before the shunting movement proceeds, shunting staff must first stop the road traffic. By day, holding up one hand. By night, a white light in such a manner that it will warn road users to stop. The shunting movement can then be called on to the level crossing.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.
When boarding a moving locomotive, remember these guiding principles. Use your inside hand to grip the handrail firmly, step up and in with your inside leg, and remember to hold on. Watch the following demonstration of getting on and off a moving locomotive. Notice our shunter has reduced the speed to walking pace. Faces the direction of travel, reaches in with his hand, steps up and in with the inside leg. Observe as he prepares to get off that he steps out and down with the outside leg, checking to see that the underfoot conditions are safe and free of obstructions. When getting on a moving wagon, the same guidelines apply. Face the direction of travel, firm hand grip, step in and up with the inside leg and hold on. And let's look at our shunter getting off and on a moving wagon. Speed of the movement is reduced to walking pace. He faces the direction of travel, takes a firm hand grip with his inside hand, steps up and in with the inside leg. Notice also that he steps out and down with the outside leg onto a safe, unobstructed surface. Observe our shunter boarding a wagon in the leading direction of travel.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.
The early identification of faults to rolling stock, insecure loads and incomplete documentation, and the appropriate steps to remedy them is essential to the smooth and safe running of operations. These books contain rules and instructions related to your job, and they're available at your terminal office if you don't have a personal copy. Have you seen this? It's the Freight Handling Code. It contains important information controlling the loading and securing of goods and containers and other notes for the safe passage of vehicles. You have access to the Freight Handling Code through your operations office. Look along the vehicles to see if any are out of line with others. If you observe any wagons sitting differently, the load may be out of balance, so check float clearances. Over-gauge loads are those loads which exceed the standard gauge of a vehicle in height, width or length. Overweight loads are those that exceed the load plate capacity of a vehicle. Doors and hatches on vehicles and containers must be secured whether they're empty, part-loaded or full. Lashings, chains, ropes and strops, when used, must firmly secure the load. But let's remember, when securing steel to a flat deck, the load must be separated by dunnage, and the chains securing the load must also be separated by dunnage. Chains must be laced across the wagon deck when not in use to secure a load. Tarpaulins must not be used to secure a load. Containers must be loaded directly onto wagons without dunnage. Vehicles loaded with containers must have twist locks engaged with the locking mechanism secured. When vehicles or containers are carrying hazardous substances, the appropriate placards must be displayed. Ensure the correct segregation is observed. Details of segregation requirements can be found in the Code Supplement. All wagons bearing hazardous placards must be accompanied by the appropriate documentation. 3 copies of RFDG 27 or Emergency Procedure Guide. 1 copy to be placed with the work order for the locomotive engineer. 1 copy unsighted in the wagon. 1 copy to be placed in the G32 Dangerous Goods wagon card with a hazardous freight consignment note. The train work order created through Amicus contains a copy of the train manifest, a train information form, the rule of the week, transit orders, and the schedule for that train. Additionally, hazardous substances documentation and/or an overgauge permit if required. On the headstock of all vehicles, you'll find hand grips, air brake equipment, which includes the tap, and a hose fitted with an O-ring. Buffer, hook, bridle, and drawbar pin. On some vehicles equipped with an older type buffer, a slot protector is placed over the drawbar pin to hold it in place. The handbrake can be a lever, ratchet, or wheel type. Under the frame, you'll find wheels, axles, and the mechanical rigging associated with the air brake equipment. Springs and their spacers, brake blocks with visible wear pad indicators, brake shoes with brake blocks attached, dampers,
Type 14. Yeah.
axle keep plate. Four-wheeled vehicles are fitted with laminated springs, axle horn, horn stays and keep bar. Brake cylinder and piston, air brake cutout cock, new type, cut in, out, old type, cut in, out, and bleed wire that operates the release valve. When the locomotive engineer advises that the air brake system is fully charged, ask for the air brakes to be applied. When making head-end inspections on wagons, make sure that the brake cock is fully open. On older type buffers, the slot protector is in place over the draw pin. That the buffers are not bent or damaged in any way, and the bridle is over the draw hook and properly placed in the buffer. That the air brake hoses are correctly coupled and not leaking any air. And that handbrakes on all wagons are released. Looking from right to left in the picture, check the conditions of the wheels, springs, and that the brake blocks are in good condition and pressed hard against the wheel. Brake rigging and rods are in position and not dragging, and that the brake cylinder has the brake piston extended, confirming that we have air brakes applied. At the end of the train, make sure that the end of train marker signal is in place.
Locomotive engineer 843 from the GX, can you release the brakes, please?
Ask the locomotive engineer to release the brakes. See that the brakes release quickly. You can tell this is happening by watching the piston return to the brake cylinder, listening to the air escaping at the same time. Look to see that all the brake blocks are free from contact with the wheels. Return to the locomotive on the other side of the train, making the same checks as you move along. When you've completed your inspection and the train is safe to run, hand the signed train inspection form to the locomotive engineer.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.
Connect the locomotive to the train. Connect the air hoses together. Pull the taps down and wait for the locomotive engineer to tell you when the air brake is fully charged. Ask the locomotive engineer to apply the brakes. Look and see that the automatic coupling is securely connected. You can check this by observing that the disconnecting release lever is firmly placed in the clip and that the lock lever is in line with the chain. Make sure the electric jumper is in place. But if this needs to be reconnected at any time, go to the generator and turn the switch off before reconnecting them. Before moving along, have a look at the spreader bar. Make sure that it's not rubbing on the safety straps and check nuts are not loose. There are 2 per bogie, 4 per car. There are a number of checks you should make as you walk down a train. When passing footsteps, make sure they're safe to stand on. Let's examine the wheels, springs, dampers and brake blocks. Starting from left to right, check the locking and securing nuts, brake shoe to spreader bar. Observe the condition of the brake block wear pad and check that the springs aren't broken and the brake block securing nuts are in place. Check that the damper unit is in place and give it a nudge with your boot to make sure it's not loose. Check to see that the brake rod pin is in place. Listen and hear if there is any air leaking from the connected brake hoses. If a leak can't be fixed by moving the hose within the coupling, then replace the hose concerned. Look at the brake cylinder and see that the piston is out and that the brake blocks are hard against the wheel. When you come to a handbrake, make sure that it is released fully and back turned. At the end of the train, make sure that the end of train signal is in place. Ask the locomotive engineer to release the brakes. See that the brakes release quickly. You can tell that this is happening by watching the piston return to the brake cylinder, listening to the air escaping at the same time, and looking to see that all the brake blocks are free from contact with the wheels. If the van is at the rear of the train, observe that the brake pipe pressure gauge is reading 550 kPa. Return to the locomotive on the other side of the train, making the same checks as you move along. When you've completed your inspection and the train is safe to run, advise the locomotive engineer.
Remember, safety is of vital importance to everyone, our employees, our customers and the public. Think safe.